Good job.
Okay, take a breath and do it again. And push. Good job. That's it.
Okay. Awesome. Congratulations, everyone. Nice baby.
A little bit of a short cord.
Yes, we have a girl.
Oh.
Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So this is a long awaited video. In this video, I'll be talking about my labor story, my delivery, how Soleil is doing. She's officially 1 month old yesterday, the 25th. And we just had her 1 month checkup at her doctor's, at her pediatrician, and everything is going well. She still has her newborn rash. And other than that, she's doing fine. So in this video, I'll be talking about what happened to the point where I had to be admitted to the hospital up until now, and just like how I've been feeling, me dealing with postpartum depression, because I am on the borderline of that, and just talking about like how I've just been coping with it. So as you all know, I was pregnant, and I found out I was pregnant in November. And then throughout my whole entire pregnancy, I really didn't have any complications. Everything went fine. I did all genetic testing. I did all the labs and blood work and things like that, and she was fine. I did the gestational diabetes, the glucose test. I didn't have diabetes. I didn't really have high blood pressure at all. So I guess you could say throughout my entire pregnancy, I really had no complications. The only complication I had was that I had I can't even think of the word, but it's just, my morning sickness was really, really bad, to the point where the morning sickness became afternoon sickness, evening sickness, night sickness. I threw up a lot during my first and kind of like my second trimester, where I had to get medication that kind of helped soothe that. But for the most part, like I said, my pregnancy had no complications. So my due date was July 17th, 2019. And I already knew in my mind, you know, like, she's not going to come on time. Babies, from my experience and people that I've known who've had kids, babies either come like 2 weeks early or they come late. Babies really don't come on their due date, so I really wasn't pressed if she wasn't here on the 17th. My plan was to continue to work throughout my entire 9 months, which I did. I even took off the week she was due, because I was like, okay, well, let me be at home, and if my water breaks, whatever. And then my water never broke. So, so yes, she was a week late, and I had my regular doctor's appointment. So my doctor had told me on July 17th when I went, was that if she does not come after that day, then I will be induced the following week on the 25th. In my mind, that wasn't the plan. Aaron and I were just like, induction. You know, you just read so many different things about it. You hear so many horror stories, and they're kind of true. But I just wasn't a big fan of being induced. So after she said that, I had from the July 17th up until the 25th for my cervix to be dilated, because she did a membrane sweep where they pretty much, the doctor just puts their fingers in you, but they go like all the way as far as they can go to see how dilated you are, if your cervix is still hard, is it soft? And my cervix was still hard, and I wasn't dilated, and I was just like, shit. So that was kind of depressing. I felt really defeated that day, and Aaron was like, don't worry about it. So my doctor was like, okay, I need y'all two to have sex. I need you to eat some pineapples. I need you to eat some dates, bounce on a ball. So right after that, we left the doctor's appointment. I got my yoga ball. I bought a fresh pineapple. I bought dates, which aren't bad. And we had sex, and still nothing. And so we already knew that she will come the week after the 17th. So I had to go back to work because, like I said, I only took off that week of July 17th. So by that time, I had burnt through all my vacation. So I went back to work, and the attorneys who I work for, they were like, "Why are you here?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm clearly still pregnant." By that time, it was hot and humid, and I was just over being pregnant. My feet, I started to notice a couple of days. I started to notice that week that I had her that my feet were really, really swollen. And then I had a doctor's appointment on July 24th. And the plan was to do a fetal stress test, another ultrasound, and another membrane sweep. So I was like, okay, fine, whatever. So July 24th comes, and I go to my doctor's appointment. Aaron couldn't come because he had to work, so my mom took me. And so I went to my doctors, and they always checked my weight. So they checked my weight first, which was fine. I weighed 214 pounds when I gave birth. So that right there. So I weighed in at 214 pounds. And then I went into my doctor's office, well, the exam room, and the nurse was like, okay, I'm going to check your blood pressure first, and then we're going to do the fetal stress test. So I was mentally prepared. I've been drinking water. I drank water a lot during my pregnancy. I did have Starbucks, but everything was decaf. So I was like, oh, okay, fine. Like I said, no complications. So she checks my blood pressure, and she looked at it, and she was like, oh. And I looked at her like, oh. And she was like, your blood pressure is a little high, but we'll just check it afterwards. So I was just like, how high? And she was like, oh, 149. And she kind of mumbled it, but I heard 149 over, it was over another number. And so I didn't think nothing of it because I felt fine. I wasn't dizzy. I wasn't lightheaded. I wasn't lightheaded, nothing like that. So my doctor comes in, and she's like, hi, how are you? Da-da-da. All the friendly hellos. And she was like, okay, let's get into the blood pressure. And the nurse was like, oh, I'll just check it again. And then my doctor was like, no, like, what was it? Because she wasn't trying to tell my doctor, because she was like, shit. She told the doctor, I forgot what number it was, but it was 149 over something else. But either way, my blood pressure was extremely high, like dangerously high. And again, I felt fine. Nothing, I didn't feel weird other than my feet were swollen. So my doctor was like, look, I'm gonna break it down to you. You done bought a one-way ticket to the hospital. You're being admitted today. You have 2 hours to get to the hospital. Go home, shower, eat, go to the hospital. And by that time, it was like going on 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So I was trying to just deal with everything that was coming. I cried in front of my doctor, and she's like, it's fine. You know, just preeclampsia. We just don't want you to have any other further complications because now preeclampsia is sitting in. And I'm just like, and it was a whole thing. So at that time, Aaron was still home because normally he leaves for work between 12, 1 o'clock. It just depends on like his schedule. So I'm blowing his phone up, trying to race to get back home because I know once he leaves, he turns his phone off because of what he does for work. And I won't see him until he gets off at midnight. So I'm blowing up his phone. My mom's blowing up his phone, and he's not answering. So by that time, it's like 12:45. So I told her, well, normally Aaron calls me when he's on his way to work. So either way, we can kind of stop him from going to work. And then I thought to myself, Aaron is either one or two things. He's either knocked out, sleep, or he's playing his Xbox and the phone is turned on silent. And my mother was like, I hope he's not playing Xbox with his phone on silent. And I'm like, I know him. His phone is on silent. So we get home, and I put my key in the door, and guess what Aaron was doing? Playing Xbox. And where was his phone? On silent. and turned over. So I was pissed. I was like, I've been calling you. I've been blowing up your phone. We gotta go. We gotta go. He was like, what's going on? Wait. And I was like, I'm being admitted. My blood pressure is way too high. It's dangerously high. And we have to be at the hospital in 2 hours. So I need to shower. I need to calm down because at this point I'm emotional because, again, I feel defeated. For one, my baby was late. And I was dealing with all this shit, mainly from his family about her being a week late, and to the point where it's like I just want to tell them to shut the fuck up and leave me alone. But that's a whole nother thing. So in my mind, I was feeling all of these different things, and then I have to deal with preeclampsia setting in, and my blood pressure is high, and I just don't know what to do. Like, everything is just thrown off. So luckily, my hospital bag was already in Aaron's car. Yes. So we get to the hospital. I need to take her out of the stroller. We get to the hospital. Well, first, I showered, changed my clothes. I put on I just put on a dingy ass outfit. We went to Chick-fil-A. I got me a regular chicken sandwich, no fries, and I drank water, and then we went to the hospital. So we get to the hospital, we check in. Of course, you sit through triage, and we were sitting in triage forever. We got to the hospital around like 3 going on 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We waited about 20 minutes in the waiting room, and then we got moved to triage, and then we were in triage for like another 4 hours. They were checking my blood pressure, still 149 at this point. And then they were saying that, oh, the baby's heartbeat is irregular, because it'll do like 3 beats, and then it'll skip. It'll be like boom, 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 and it'll do that. So they're like, oh, shit. So they're checking my blood pressure, and at that point, they're like, you don't feel these contractions? I'm like, no. But now that I think about it, earlier that morning on the 24th around midnight, I remember I went to the bathroom and I was going back to bed, and I felt a very sharp pain in my stomach, and then I kind of just thought it was like Braxton Hicks contractions, but this pain didn't really go away right away, and I had to like grab on to like my entryway table and kind of like breathe through it, and then it went away. So now that I think about it, that probably was something that I should have been more alert to, but like I said, I felt fine throughout my entire pregnancy. I just thought it was like a regular cramp, but it happened when I kind of like bent down to grab something. So I don't know, now that I think back on it, it was kind of something I should have worried about. But either way, I got admitted that day. So I had been having contractions all day on the 24th because I had went to work, and then I had my doctor's appointment. So my mom picked me up from work, and apparently I was having contractions that whole day. So now that I think about it, that's probably what that initial cramp was. I don't know. So we finally get moved into my room around 7, 8 o'clock. And then they were like, oh, well, first, while we were in triage, I'm sorry, this is all over the place. I'm really trying to film this so y'all can see her and I can feed her. So while we were in triage, they said, well, we need to induce you, but we have different methods. We can give you Pitocin now, but these are the risks of Pitocin. And then we could put a balloon in you and something, or we can give you a pill called Servidol, and you take 3 doses of that every 2 or 3 hours to help like soften your cervix. So me being me, I'll take the pill. So I started taking the pill, and right when we got moved over to my room, that's when the contractions finally started to hit. I had to get a catheter. I never had a catheter done. That was just so awkward. It was just weird. So then I started having contractions, and then they were like, well, we can't give you with so much Servidol, so we have to put the balloon in you, and the balloon is going to blow up. We're going to fill it with saline water, and we're going to have to put a catheter in you, so for me to pee. So I was like, okay, fine. They put the catheter in me, and it was just very uncomfortable. The balloon was uncomfortable because they legit just put a balloon in you and blow it up, and you just feel all this pressure and whatever. So contractions are terrible. They're worse than a pregnancy period cramp. At first I was like, oh, I can do this. And then they got worse and worse, where I had to like hold on to my mom and rock myself. And then I had to grab on to Aaron and rock myself. And I was squeezing the life out of his hand. Because at that point he didn't go to work. He told them like, she's in labor. So God, that whole night was just, oh my God, I was just in pain that whole night, just dealing with contractions. I hadn't had my epidural yet. I wasn't getting it till the next day, and it was just, oh my gosh, it was terrible. So the next day, the 25th, Aaron stayed the night. My mom left and came back. And then I had to get my epidural. That wasn't too bad, but at this point, my contractions were really, really, really bad, to the point where the doctor was like, okay, we're gonna just have to put the epidural in you in between contractions, so you need to tell us. At this point, my blood pressure is still dangerously high, and her heartbeat is very irregular and is getting worse. So they're like, okay, we need to give you the epidural and we need to give you Pitocin. So the epidural is in, amazing. They gave me the Pitocin, and then they had to stop with the Pitocin because it was affecting her heart rate even more. So they stopped the Pitocin, and then they were like, okay, let's do a cervical check, because they can only check you so many times because you don't want to get an infection, because just them like going in and out, it can cause an infection. So they checked me in the morning, and then they checked me again in the afternoon. And by that point, they was like, okay, you're dilated. I don't remember how, I want to say I was at least 5 or 6 centimeters dilated, like around, I don't remember what time, but I know it was further along in that day. My brother had came and, saw me. Aaron had went home to walk the dogs and came back. And I want to say around 3 or 4 o'clock, they was like, oh, you're having this baby today. And then reality set in again, and I was like, shit. I was like, oh my God. So fast forward, they gave me like a little epidural thing where if I felt like any pain, I could just press the button and it would just administer the medication and whatever. But around 2 or 3 p.m., I started to feel like pressure on my right side. And no matter how many times I pressed the thing for the epidural medicine, that pain was not going away. And I kept telling them like, it's just a lot of pressure. And they're like, well, is it pressure to poo? Because if it is, then, we don't want you to poo because you might push and blah, blah, blah. So I was like, okay, fine, whatever. And then, what happened? Really trying to remember. I should have wrote this down. Okay, so at this point, everyone is having their babies. I can hear moms and screaming. I hear people are getting C-sections. I hear babies being born, and I'm still pregnant. So at this time, I slept most of that morning and afternoon on the 25th. I'm just sleeping. There's like a video of me like knocked out. I'm just sleeping because for one, I'm doped up on the epidural, and I was afraid that I could OD because I always ask the nurse like, can I OD off of this? And she's like, no, you can push it as many times as you want. So I'm pushing it as many times as I want. But again, it's that pain on my right side, that pressure is just not going away. So I want to say that evening, I was next for the doctors to come in so I can start giving birth, because at that point they had to break my water, and by breaking my water they had to stick like a crochet looking needle, and they just stuck it in me, and then I just felt this like gush of liquid, like water, and I was just like, did my water break? And it was like, yeah, we broke your water. So I was like, oh, okay. At this point, I can't feel nothing. I can't feel my legs. I can't feel my feet. I can't feel nothing below me due to the epidural, which is amazing. So the doctors are assisting someone else to give birth, and there was a nurse and probably like 2 interns, and they were like, okay, we can do some practice pushes, and hopefully by that time, just ate Popeyes. And hopefully by that time, the doctors will be finished help with the other woman who was getting her baby delivered. So I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. We did the practice pushes, and Soleil was ready. She was already crowning off one practice push. So I pushed, and they told me to stop, and then they was like, oh, we need a doctor. And Aaron was like, yeah, her head is like right there, because he was on my left side holding my legs while I pushed. So he looked over, he was like, yeah, her head is like right there. So that whole entire room just filled in with the NICU people. It filled in with all these doctors and nurses, and my friend Quinn was there, my mom was there, Aaron was there, and that whole room just flooded with everybody. And yeah, so they turned on the lights and put my legs in stirrups, and they put on their surgical masks like Grey's Anatomy, and they was like, okay, you ready to push? And I'm like, sure. So I do have the exact videos of me pushing and that exact moment when Soleil came out, but that's a little much for YouTube, and I don't want to get flagged. But I'll probably post like an audio clip of it. But I pushed. I thought pushing would be worse. I don't know, maybe it's because I was doped up, but I did feel like pressure when I pushed. And Aaron was just holding my leg, and he was like, come on. Like, at that point, I remember while I was pushing, I tuned out pretty much everything but the one nurse telling me to like stop. And she was like, okay, we're gonna do a deep breath, and you're gonna push, like just push, like don't push like you have to shit, but like just push. And I'm like, okay, fine. So, I close my eyes because I don't want to look at anybody. I close my eyes and I concentrate, and I did one deep breath in, and I pushed real as hard as I could.
Go.
Good job.
Very good. Keep going.
Beautiful job. Take a
Deep
breath.
breath in.
Do that again. Big push.
And push.
Big push.
Yes,
Now
push.
You got it.
Push.
Good.
Awesome job. Hi.
Keep going. All right, blow it out. Deep breath in.
Take a
One
breath
good
and do
push
one more
first.
just like that.
Here we go. Push.
Yes, Jocelyn,
Push.
you can do
More.
it.
Good job. Keep pushing. Keep
You got this.
pushing.
You got this. You got this.
So close. Look at you. Good job. Beautiful job. Okay.
All right,
Take a
love, blow
breath.
it out.
Take a breath. Take a breath.
Got one more in you?
Yeah.
If no, it's okay. We can rest.
She's still pretty firm.
All right, let's do one
All
more.
right.
Breath in
Okay.
for me.
Push again.
Let's do it. You
Yes.
guys, and then push. Keep your
Push,
baby down there.
push,
Come on,
push.
push.
Yes.
Good job.
That's it. Okay, I want you to take a breath. Okay?
Blow
Take
it
a
out.
breath. Blow it out. So your baby's head is partway delivered. Okay, so now small pushes. Okay? I want you to do little 3-second pushes for me. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Again, Aaron is on my left. My mom is like on the other side with Quinn, and they have full view of my vagina. And I know they're taking videos and pictures because I got them all, hopefully. And I'm just pushing. And while I'm pushing, everyone's getting excited. And Aaron's like, she's almost here. And she was out in 15 minutes. Soleil came out in 15 minutes of me pushing. I had no tearing. The nurses and the doctors were like, shit, we were expecting you to push for a few hours. Because normally they say first time moms, they don't really know how to regulate their breathing, nor do they know how to really push, like, you know what I mean, like push. So they were really impressed. I was impressed. I was expecting to be pushing for a few hours, but she was out in 15 minutes and I didn't tear. They showed me my placenta. She came out crying, and it was just, it's a picture of me when they put her on my chest, and I'm just so like relieved to have my baby, just for one, not to be pregnant anymore, but I still couldn't feel nothing down there. But then they had to like push on my stomach to get, all that extra out. and she came out yelling and very pink, and that was it. So now I'm going to show y'all Soleil. Here she is. This is Soleil. She's asleep. We just got back from the doctor, but she is like knocked out. Soleil Alana, she is knocked out. She had a doctor's appointment today, but she just came out super fast. No complications. Her irregular heartbeat thing went away. They said that would clear up as soon as I gave birth, and it did. The only thing was like her jaundice levels, so that was like the only real concern. But she's healthy and spoiled, and she's here. I feel like she looks like Erin. She don't look nothing like me, but y'all on Instagram love to say that she do. But yeah, I wish she was more awake, but I don't. But look at her. Yeah, she'll wake up soon for me to feed her. But yes, so we came home from the hospital that Saturday. We did the whole birth certificate thing, and Erin had to fill out paperwork for that because okay, so since we're not married, I don't know, it's weird. Since we're not married, he has to acknowledge that he is the father, and he has to fill out his own paperwork, so that he knows his laws and stuff. Like if he wants to get a paternity test, he's willing, his right to do so. It was just a lot of stuff that he had to do, and like a little bit of extra paperwork because we're not married, and she doesn't have my last name. She has his. And that was one thing we had to figure out. Like, okay, like I knew I wasn't going to hyphenate her last name because mine is hyphenated, and I just wanted her to have her dad's last name for legal reasons. And so yeah, we had to fill out like paperwork for that, and he had to acknowledge, paternity and things like that. So we went home, and the first couple of days home weren't too bad, and then it wasn't. So now she is a month old, and she's pretty much healthy. The doctor said today she's 9 pounds and 4 ounces, and she's growing, and she's getting taller, and she still has her newborn rash, and they just said that she's doing really, really well. Their only concern is about me because I'm dealing with postpartum depression. I've had my own like issues with depression in the past. I was depressed early on in my pregnancy. I was depressed during my pregnancy, and even well before I got pregnant, I just always dealt with depression. So I kind of just knew like I would be dealing with postpartum, and I didn't think it would be this bad. Because anytime I go to the doctor for her, or just if anyone asks me like, how are you doing? It's kind of one of those things where I kind of tear up and get emotional about it just off the simple, like, how are you doing? Because I feel fine, but I know I'm not fine, if that makes sense. It's not to the point where I want to like harm myself or harm her. It's just one of those things where I'm adjusting to life as a mom. I'm not getting the sleep that I'm used to. And I do have bouts of anger. And it's just one of those things that I'm currently dealing with. But Erin is being supportive. My mom is being supportive. And Soleil's aunts and her godmother, everyone is being like supportive and there for us and there for her. It's just one of those things where I'm just working through it. I'm taking it day by day. And some days are hard. There were many times after we brought her home from the hospital where I cried, and I still cry. And I'm not gonna, lie about it. It's been times where I'm just like, that guilt sets in, and then you think, did I, am I doing the right thing? Like, I don't know shit about babies. I don't think I'm gonna be a good mom. She deserves someone better. And Aaron was like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean she deserves someone better? And I'm like, sometimes I feel like she deserves a better mom. And everyone can tell you all day that you're great and you're fine. But it is one of those things that I still have to adjust to and accept and deal with my anger a little better. Because there was one situation where my anger did get the best of me. And my mom had to take, Soleil for a night so that I could just get some rest, and then I was fine. But just dealing with postpartum, it takes time. It's not one of those things where it's just gonna go away overnight. But I do love her, even when she's screaming at me and being a brat and being really fussy. She's not colicky at all. She just wants to be held, and that's just another thing I have to get used to. Because there's just times where I just want to put her down and just do my own thing, and I can't. So this is one, it's just, for me, it's an adjustment. And then a huge part of where I was really depressed about, whatever, was that she wasn't latching well to my breast. So I internalized it as though she was rejecting me, because we just could not get her to latch onto my breast. It hurt. And anytime I tried to breastfeed her in the very beginning, she would fight me and cry and yell and scream and holler for a bottle. And I just felt really defeated. And I felt like, she doesn't love me. She's rejecting me. And Aaron and I went to a lactation consultant, and that helped out a lot. So now she's latching on. We're still working on it, but she's latching on and eating from me and I feel a little better. But like I said, it gets easier every day. So I'm just dealing with postpartum at the moment. It's just something that it's a new normal for me. But I do have people who are very supportive, who actually care. But Miss Soleil Alana, a lot of people ask me, is that her first name? No, her first name is Soleil. Her middle name is Alana, and she has Aaron's last name. But I'm surprised she's like being really quiet right now. But she could be tired from like her doctor's appointment, because they were like touching her, and she was just like, she was over it. But that is my labor and delivery story. Oh, I didn't say what time she came. She came at 8:35 that night on the 25th, and she was 7 pounds and 13 ounces. And she does her own thing. She's a stubborn Leo. I always knew she was going to be a Leo. And everyone's like, oh, she's going to be a Cancer. And I'm like, no, she's going to be a Leo. Because I'm an Aries, and Erin is a Sagittarius, and then she's a Leo. So we have nothing but fire in this house. As far as like, 'cause I know some of you want to ask, because I haven't asked this, when am I going to have another one? And Erin and I are at this point, like, let's just deal with her. Right now, at this time, I'm afraid to have another child, just based off how I'm feeling, dealing with my own emotions. So I just don't think it would be a good time. And plus, she's not even like a year old yet. She's only a month. So that's that. But I love seeing both of them interact with each other, her and Aaron, because he's not really emotional. But when I see him like play with her and hold her and feed her, he's like a completely different person, and she just lights up for him, and whatever. She still won't lay on his chest all the way, but for the most part, I just love seeing both of them just interact, and I can't wait for her to develop into her own little personality, which I'm sure she'll be stubborn and spoiled and just whatever. But she's here, so I'll try to post videos more often. But then again, I don't know because I have a newborn. But that is my labor and delivery story. Let me know, how long were you in labor? And if you were admitted, or just tell me your own personal birth story, because I'm curious, because I don't have too many friends who with kids, and I'm the only friend in my friend group with the baby, because at this time last year we were at the Beyonce concert, and I have a whole ass child this year. But yes, let me know in the comments your labor and delivery story, if you had a boy or a girl, and their name if you want to share that. But thank you so much for watching. Thank you for like making it to the end of this video, because a lot of you wanted this video. And I'm gonna go breastfeed Miss. I'm probably gonna put her down so she can sleep and have her just yell at me when she's hungry. And yes, you gonna say bye? She's knocked out. Say bye-bye. I will see you all in my next video. Hopefully the next one she'll be up.